Well,
CORMAC, how's it going?
not too bad. How are you, lad?
Not too bad. How you getting on?
Good. Just in from a night's coaching out in the rain there. So,
Stoked. Are you
um,
working with the minute Gaelic team or soccer team or
there's a soccer team I'm working up with St Mary's football team in Glengormley. So I am.
have they just sort of started back then recently or what have you been doing before?
Aye, so it's just outdoor sessions at the minute with them in the car park and that, but it's actually working out quite well because they're sort of at a generic level in terms of like where everyone is. It's sort of good to like come at them from like just the basics point of view.
Yeah.
So like everyone at a good level, just at the basic movements, which is good. So it actually works out pretty well, just as long as the weather holds up.
Aye. And have you've been able to get into a wee bit more stuff recently then? Like what have you been doing? Like have you been be able to get back into a bit of coaching in the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think the past couple of weeks I've actually probably been doing well. Past maybe 2 weeks in particular, things have picked up for
Yeah.
me in terms of like a coaching perspective. So I sort of have my own space there that I can train people out of, which is good. So yeah, things have picked up in that regard, which is good. I suppose people are at the stage where they're looking to get that bit maybe extra done in
Yeah.
terms of their gym work that they can't get at the minute, and then it's just to sort of have something to sort of accompany their pitch-based stuff.
I think everyone has a bit of eagerness now as well at the minute, like to get stuff done, after you haven't been able to do it for a while, you're kinda eager to do it then, like.
That's it, yeah. And I think I suppose it's a big sort of part. But I think when the gyms closed, it was sort of I was sort of the mindset, right? I have to get something sorted because
Yeah.
I knew I would have struggled if I hadn't had my own like sort of space to train and just get through things.
I see you're doing a lot of Olympic lifting at the minute then as well.
Well, I suppose it's more so out of enjoyment, actually, to be honest with you. The Olympic sort of lifting side of things, like obviously, coming from playing football, like you sort of do get people maybe obsessing over the lifting and stuff as well, which
Yeah.
to be honest, I think everyone's sort of been through that phase where they think the Olympic lifts are some sort of silver bullet.
Uh-huh.
And I would sort of beg to differ. Like, I think if you can do them, great. But I think you have to think as well. Your training time is precious,
Yeah.
so you spend it wisely. So I think you get away. I think people maybe obsess over like all the crossover and the sprinting and stuff, which is, to be honest, I would question as well, like in terms of just how much it would cross over. But for me, I like the Olympic lifts just because they're fun.
Yeah.
I can do them to a reasonable enough level. So I've thrown a lot of time sort of spent trying
I
to get
think
them right. But even at that, like it all sort of would have started how I got into it would have been studying for the UKSCA
yeah.
accreditation. So like you sort of had to you needed to be able to lift to a reasonable enough level. So you know, that sort of would have sparked that interest for me. And then even working alongside people like
Yeah.
I'd be working with a boy from Dunoy, Andy Sang.
Uh-huh.
He would keep me. He keeps
Yeah.
me right in terms of programming and stuff, and he's good to sort of bounce ideas off in terms of and I think he gets about 50 videos a week from me. So
I think though, whenever you enjoy lifting, Olympic lifting is just like a different side of things, because it makes you think about it a wee bit more. I think
yeah,
regardless of, the benefits or the negatives, I think whenever you're into training, you just enjoy doing it, like regardless of all other stuff, just because it's something new in the gym to do, like.
yeah, I would agree. Like for me, I like to keep training fun, and I suppose once I started maybe doing them, like there's something about them I just liked. It was just I just enjoyed the sort of the cognitive sort of side of it as well. It makes you think that bit more than just your standard up down back squat.
Yeah.
Um, I think again it sort of goes back. Would I use it in a team sort of context? Probably not. Just because the sheer
Yeah.
if you've got 30 people in a gym at once, you're gonna have a whole range, as you know, like in terms of their abilities, like and their restrictions. So
Yeah.
I don't think it would be feasible in that regard, especially, you know, coming out of GAA background. I suppose a lot of the boys would maybe, in terms of like what they're actually used to, like they're sort of they get the basics right, which is good. But to maybe push them into that next level in terms of Olympic lifting, for me, like your return on investment isn't necessarily going to be that high. So I don't really see the need to put people through it for the time requirement that it's going to take for them to get it right. And that's if they get it right at all. I think like there's far more like if
Better ways
you're
to
doing
spend your time,
well,
like, yeah.
what's that, sorry?
There's better ways to spend your time, like, isn't there?
Actually, I think that
Yeah,
you've nailed it there. Like
yeah.
there's better ways to spend your time. So
What way is interim football then going to be this year? What way is that all structured?
so it's a wee bit different this year. For the first time, it's like a they're gonna go with like a Champions League sort of format. So
Right?
I'm not exactly sure. I think it's three groups. I'm not. I think it's three groups of three and a group of four.
Uh-huh.
You play each team twice, so it's decent. Like, and then there's gonna be league
Yeah.
at the end of the championship. I think come October time, but I'm not too sure what way that's gonna pan out with people in terms of
Uh,
you might
might
get the same
might be
turnout of
okay.
boys
What's your
for
club
league
again,
games
CORMAC?
in November. What's that? Sorry,
What's your club again?
Laviark.
Yours would be kind of one of the better teams in Antrim, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so I think last couple of years, well, we won it in 2017. We would
Uh-huh.
have won it, and I suppose the last couple of years we've been knocking on the door as well. Last year in particular, we would have been we were quite strong. You know, I think maybe just that wee bit of inexperience maybe didn't get us over the line, but I think we're definitely we're there we're there or thereabouts, which is good. You know, I think we've evolved sort of from a team that's maybe sort of hoping for to not be able to beat the teams on big days. You're sort of hoping that them teams have an off day. To now that I would say we're probably a team that would fancy ourselves against anybody, to be honest.
I suppose as well, like you never know with everything that's gone on the past couple of months what way teams will be come the championship. Like, will it be the same as every year? Will teams be the same, or will things have changed? Will teams that maybe in years before maybe not had as much chance have a bit more chance? You know, is this all kind of even things out, or is it just going to be the same? It's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of months. Like,
Definitely, I think there could be a few surprises. Think of anything. I suppose it maybe suits the underdog to go in and just
yeah,
there's nothing really to lose. I think you get, there's always sort of teams. I think even if you looked at the Derry Championship last year, who was it? Was it Swatra in senior who had been beat? I think near enough every league, or Banagher
Banner,
was. They went
Banner
on
went
to
there. All right,
so they pushed on the
yeah,
like the semi final, like, and it just it sort of shows you like on the day as it is, anybody can beat anybody. But it's gonna be interesting. I think the initial stage is, let's say, in a group stage format, it maybe takes away that sort of factor, the surprise factor, because
yeah,
you'd like to think the best team over the course of say 4 games, whatever it
yeah.
is going to come out either first or second. So your top two teams are maybe going to come out anyway. So there's maybe not going to be that room for the shock, but it's not. I like the format of it. I think more games is good.
Yeah,
Especially, you know, it'd be a bit harsh for a team maybe if they're coming out and maybe play one game and then they're beat, and then that's the year effectively over. I don't really think that's a fair reflection. So I
I
think
think
the
I think
group
they had to
stages
give
is
games
definitely.
like, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they've went about it the right way, like 100%.
Yeah. And then, what's your thoughts then? So, like, I'm guessing that you're starting around the first weekend of August. We're first weekend of August. Our games are
I think I think we're on the 31st of July. It's around
same
that
time.
date anyway.
So
So
what?
it's a
Yeah.
type of turnaround, I suppose, too. Like if you
Uh,
think about it, like now you've got 6 weeks to go time now.
it is pretty much 6 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah.
5, 6 weeks. So what's your kind of main if you're thinking like the kind of fears or concerns for players between now and starting games, like, you know, what do you think might happen, or what do you think is maybe the things for players to watch out for?
I think the main thing people need to be cautious of, I think anyway, is that I would start. It's a tough one, to be honest, because for me, you would want to start people small. Like ideally, in an ideal world, you would want to be having people maybe eased back into things, but appreciating the time constraints. You know, people are going to maybe try and push things a bit too hard. So you sort of, I think you have to be careful. If basically, I think come the end of the week here, I think where teams are allowed to start. Well, I don't know much teams who haven't been doing some sort of training in like small groups and that. But I think come the end of the week here, I think it's larger collective sessions. Obviously, still with like social distancing and all that.
Yeah.
But like, I think the danger is people jump in and, you know, you go with that maybe old school pre-season approach where you run people into the ground. I think you're going to break people very, very quickly. I think the way you sort of have to look at it is you're probably going to have players who haven't done enough. You're probably going to have players who have maybe done a bit, and then you're going to have players who have done way too much.
Yeah.
So I think your training is going to need to be pitched at a level that's not going to break the players that have done nothing, and is going to give the players who have done too much a chance to recover and, you know, maybe tailor their training back a bit, I think.
Yeah, I think that because I was thinking about this just for my own training, and then just for the ones that are down, you know, in the team, and chatting with the management and stuff about, you know, like kind of training over the next couple of weeks and months ahead. And although it's not a long time, it is a good bit of time too. You know, it's 6 weeks, and I think, like you were saying, people and managers will have the rush of going, there's only like 6 weeks, you know, we have to fucking get a lot of work done. But if you break down the 6 weeks, you know, and like if you start your training or you're running at a normal level that you would expect most of the lads to come back and be able to do, and understand that on like week one here, some of these lads might find this okay and it might not be killer, but as we progress each week, you know, if we add on meters and meters each week, by week 6 we should be at the point we want to be at. But I think it's like you said, like first week everyone will go out and go, here we need to be in week 1 where we want to be in week 6, so do like week 6 sessions, week 1, you know. But it's trying to have the mindset, I suppose, of going, let's start easy and understand that that's not a bad thing, and just let's gradually build it up from there.
Yeah, and I think even you saying that as well, like, albeit it's 6 weeks to your first game. Yes, everyone wants to get off to a good start and that, but like I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of like within 6 weeks you can get to a pretty like, you'd like to think, say even you take 2 weeks to sort of let people find their feet and, you know, just gradually easing things in. Like, I think the obsession with sort of fitness, like, you're going to get a huge like window of opportunity there for fitness in terms of like, especially them first like couple of sessions that are maybe going to have, obviously, you know, people being distant and no contact and stuff like that. That gives you an opportunity to sort of solely focus on fitness, and then maybe like your ball work and stuff in between. But that's it, because there's no room for maybe the small sided games and stuff. It gives you an opportunity to maybe push it that, like, to get people to accumulate that sort of volume and get the miles into the legs as well. Like, but even at that, like, I suppose I think you only really need to look at the Bundesliga, like, like they're professional athletes, have the best doctors, physios, support teams that you could want, and their injuries spiked from like, so beforehand it was like 0.27 injuries a game, and then it's up to like post lockdown, like you're saying, like nearly like 0.8 or 0.9 or something, like injuries per game. So injuries are going to happen, but I suppose, not to be like negative or anything about it, like, but if you think it's all well and good a professional footballer going out and maybe hurting himself, so God forbid he hurts his knee, does his ACL or something, but like, if within Gaelic, especially at club level, like, you know, people have day jobs, and you know, like you're sort of dancing with the devil there a bit as well. But at the same time, you can't really wrap people in cotton wool either. Like the games have to come back at some stage. So
I think that's where you have to kind of have that, you know, idea that week one, you have to have, like what I was kind of, whenever I was writing the programs thing, was like week 6, where's my end goal, and like where do I want to be? So, you know, just say for
yeah,
example, like I want to be the team doing 4,000 to 5,000 meters of running in that week 6. And then when
yeah,
we go into the game, we should be somewhere where we need to be. And if we're doing pitch stuff, we should be somewhere close to where we want to be. And then it's just trying to like work back from that point. But you know, you can only work back so far before
yeah,
you know, you can't work back to like 0 meters. You know, you have to start
yeah,
somewhere with it, whether it be 2,000 meters or 3,000, so that you can appropriately build. So you do kind of have to be, I guess, as players and managers, you have to have the hope that certain players have done enough so that they will at least be able to start at that like baseline level of whatever it
yeah,
be. You know, because if
yeah,
you start too low, then you're just not physically going to be able to build to it. So I suppose kind of maybe it's contradictory what I was saying. Like although you start easy, it's trying to start from like a normative kind of line, or somewhere that makes sense that you can build to that week 6 point. You know, rather than
yeah.
start really really hard or really 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 easy. You know, it's
Yeah,
not
I
easy
think,
to do.
I think what you said there is like 100%. Like you sort of have to get at the point each week you're maybe going to be testing the boundary that bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you say, like if you start too low, then by the time week 6 comes, you're not ready for that pace. You're not ready for you haven't done the work basically.
Yeah,
So it's about getting it to that sort of sweet spot where you're building things up gradually, but obviously you're pulling back the reins slightly too. Like
yeah. Another thing too, which I like, I think anyone that's kind of in strength condition always like you get annoyed about this is you know, the kind of thought of like, here we'll only start doing like speed stuff, you know, like two weeks out, you know, just to like sharpen up,
yeah,
you know, and
uh,
you're trying to get people the idea that, you know, do that shit at the start and gradually build it as well. Like I think, you know, managers will again probably go, here now we'll leave that the last 2 weeks and then we'll be flying. But that is, I think, you know, in terms of talking about injury prevention, that is so important as well. Like getting those high speed meters and doing the sprints between week 1 and week 6 and trying to build it too.
yeah. I think you're 100%. Like if you think if you leave all that, so nobody sprinted fast, say for 4 weeks, so with no like exposure to high speed running whatsoever. So then I'd say you could have a couple of physios being very busy come week 4 when boys get thrown in at the deep end and start sprinting. Again, I suppose like Aaron, that's you want to start small in the same way like with your running volume you talked about. Like
Mhm.
say if the first couple of weeks is like I don't know like one suggestion I had was like so if we have boys like let's say a standard speed session like and I think well, I'll mention this first. So, like, say your standard speed session on week 1
Mhm.
starts at like 310 meters, 220 meters, and then 130 meter,
Mhm.
and then just gradually building that up. But I think to sort of sidetrack it slightly, like I think we can get obsessed at the same time with like techniques and all that comes with that, which is great as well. Like obviously if you're looking to improve people, you're looking to improve athleticism. You want to be thinking, right, how can I make this person faster? But like obviously for teams that are maybe under resourced in terms of they mightn't have say the skill set to see how they could improve someone's running. I think even just sprinting alone, like regardless what way you sprint, in my opinion, if you're sprinting, you're gonna get faster.
Definitely.
So I think it's the act of actually sprinting. I suppose it's different from say like if you're in the gym and you're squatting with the wrong technique or something that like
Yeah.
maybe some of that's obviously totally different. But I think if you're gonna sprint that way anyway, when it comes down to a game, then you may as well practice like
I
sprinting. You know what I mean? I think
like
there's no reason why people shouldn't be doing speed work from week 1 as well. Like.
I would I would probably hazard a guess here, and this is because it's the same for me and other coaches. I would say the success rate that, you know, you haven't actually fully changing somebody's sprint technique in a short space of time is virtually nil. You know, you have to do
Yeah,
it
exactly.
for so long, like 1 or 2 sessions, and if that's all you're going to do, it's a fucking waste of time. Like
Yeah,
trying to change
that's
the
it.
habit of a lifetime with with a couple of sessions, like it's just not going to happen. Like
Yeah, especially at senior level, like you could do all the ice skips you want, all the
yeah,
wall drives you want, I suppose, as well. But I think even to the extent you might get them slightly better come like in a closed sort of environment. But see, when it comes down to it, when they're both going for a ball, they're gonna go for the ball the way they've always went for it. Like they're not gonna go fuck. Am I driving my knee forward here or
yeah.
any of that? Like, do you know what I mean? They're gonna go for the ball the way they've always went for it. So
Let's kind of break down then. Say if say we'll try and do it for both here. So,
yeah.
basis of say a player going down to the pitch himself, going down to do a session, and
Mm-hmm.
then say the manager is listening, so he's going to do a team session this week with the lads. Let's maybe like try and break down say a warm up. We said this earlier when we were chatting, like a warm up, speed work, fitness, and then maybe any other kind of considerations, and maybe how do you progress that as well.
Yeah. I think maybe the best way to do this is like, do we want to take a section? Like, say I'll go first on the warm up, and then anything you want to add or debate, or
Yeah,
we can then go for that. Yeah.
yeah, go for it.
So for the warm up, I think your warm up, I think, becomes a lot more crucial, and that would be for the reason we've sort of discussed. Maybe boys haven't been doing, their higher speed running stuff, and obviously there hasn't been like room for gym work or anything either. So for me, I think your raise phase becomes a lot more important
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like you would want to be getting people like obviously going through like their usual stuff. So the A skips, yeah, we'll do our A skips, we'll do our scissors, we'll do our B skips. But I think you need to get people to think a lot more about what they're doing, so that they're not just going through the motions. Like when we're doing our A skips, we're emphasizing sort of that stiff ankle contact. When we're doing the B skips, we're emphasizing that sort of whip round of the leg, put the hamstring under a bit of pressure there as well. Even with the scissors too, like you'd be wanting to make sure like just simple things to even prepare your hamstring, stuff
Yep.
like that. Then I suppose your activate phase, well, everyone's doing, from my perspective, I think that's pretty straightforward in terms like you would be doing the same exercises, but again, sort of just emphasizing that the actual point of what you're doing, you're not just going through the motions, doing your squats, like maybe thinking a bit more just about what you're doing and being that bit more clued in, especially with the amount of time that people have been away. I think it gives you, it sort of puts a bit more emphasis on the warm up to be right,
Mm-hmm.
just for that injury prevention say if you like stimulus. I think then even as well as that, like because because we've been out of the games for that long, like if we have an emphasis in particular on like jumping and landing mechanics, just so that we're really up to speed there in terms like would we want to work on like single leg landings, but even jumps in general, just so that we get that stimulus and see just how we get on with that.
Yeah.
And then mobilize, I suppose things would stay pretty similar again, but again, just to emphasize, the key areas we want to be targeting. So in looking at the hips, making sure we're getting some sort of activation through the hamstrings, single leg RDLs, and prepping in through the ankles and stuff, just making sure we're feeling good before we then go in, say, our potentiate phase. So in there, I suppose you could be looking at things again, like I suppose that could look like anything in terms of maybe what you're trying to get out of the session. So say we're maybe working on acceleration. So at the end of your warm up, maybe throwing in some sort of power steps, some sort of bounding movement. If we're looking at like your higher end top speed stuff, looking at say for example like your pogo stuff like that, like that. Just sort of trying to get again stiffness in through the ankle, so as we emphasize that right when we hit the ground, get straight back up and off it as quick as we can. I suppose a good template for anyone that would be like maybe struggling for a warm up, and even teams in general, one that I would use would be the GAA Activate warm up.
Uh-huh.
I think it's like if you're in doubt about how to structure the warm up, I think it just ticks all the boxes. You know, in terms of even the structure, I like the way the structure sort of in the way out. You're doing something like active. You're going through a movement. It'd be that like a run, be that a hop, or even like a jump on a stick at the cone, and then on the way back you sort of have like either an activation exercise or a mobilization sort of exercise as well. I like the way it's structured personally. I think it's good as well in that you can space people out a bit further in terms of like, well, not space them out, but like you could have 30 people and get them really organized and going through a warm up that way.
Yeah. So you're kind of like your warm ups, you would be basing them off like a kind of ramp style. So you'd be starting off with kind of like some sort of sprint mechanics. So like a skip, B skip, scissors, something along that there for a couple of minutes. And then you'd be going into then like kind of like a squat or lunges, those kind of movements then for a couple of minutes. And
Yeah.
then into some sort of mobility, whether that be like fucking leg swings or stretching, something like that, and then finishing
Yeah.
with something a wee bit higher end. So you're going into like pogos, jumps, maybe more like plyometric based kind of.
Yeah, definitely. And I think
Then how long roughly would you be kind of allocating for that? Like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
I think you have a sweet spot there of about 10, 15 minutes
Yeah.
personally. Like, but I think like for your warm up as well, like you don't. I don't think you should be complicating stuff. I think you keep stuff basics and just focus on the basics. And like I find you'll not go too far wrong. Like
Yeah, I think that ramp template's very good, especially as well if you know, if you're not sure about what way to structure a warm up, even whether that be for yourself. Like I think that warm up you said there is brilliant for a player going down himself. You know, keeps it very simple. You know, you have a good structure to follow. Um, and then I think for the team as well, it's brilliant. The one thing which I think is always great to add in, but it'll be difficult now. Is I always think getting some sort of like game or something to get people thinking in the warm up. You know, whether it be like I remember one that we always do, which is like a wee bit of agility work too, called like fucking sheepdog. So like you put the bags,
yeah,
you know, something to get people thinking. But I think it helps too. You see, whenever lads start having a bit of crack and laughing, you know, it helps them
yeah,
kind of settle into actually doing the warm up rather than coming down and then like, you know, fucking draining on. You know, it keeps them kind of going too. So I think when you can implement we like games and things to get people thinking too, that definitely makes the warm up even better. Like I think that's how you can really add to like the wee ramp section, isn't it?
yeah. I would agree with that. I suppose the end goal of your warm up is you want sort of boys right as soon as this is done, you want them bouncing into the next drill. Like you like that's. I think it sets the tone for the rest of your session. Like
Yeah.
see just on warm ups as well. Like I see the way like I've seen teams that sort of incorporate that same sort of warm up style, that they would incorporate that with a ball. Like I know Kerry, when they're warming up, like they sort of incorporate like ball drills, but then obviously a whistle will blow and then they'll go straight into something
Yeah.
different. That's actually a warm up style I'd be interested to try out and see like how players would respond to it. Like I think it's good because there's a lot of movement and you know people are getting a feel for the ball pretty early, which is
Yeah.
good. What do you think about that sort of warm up style?
I suppose like you could really use that as the race section, couldn't you? You know, like well, you're
Yeah,
doing some wee light ball drills for the start of it. Then maybe as you say, you break into doing like, you know, your activation. Even that, you know, if you could
yeah,
get the potentiation towards the end with some ball drills, you know, when you're adding maybe some accelerations or change of directions, you know, something like that
yeah,
could make it a bit better as well. But I suppose the more you can get the ball in the hands, the better. Like I think the longer you don't, players become disengaged, like don't they?
yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. So to sum up warm ups, then we're saying get a sort of pulse raiser, whether that be with the ball, doing maybe like a bit of passing, whether it be like in a wee small grid, something like that. Obviously, we might not be able to do that now, or else maybe incorporate some sort of sprint mechanics, A skips, B skips, something along those lines. Then we're into some sort of activation. So that could be anything really from your squats, your lunges, maybe like Copenhagen, something like that as well. Would you put them in there?
Yeah, actually, now that you mention that, that sort of reminded me of something I wanted to touch on. Like, I think if you like if you have like a standardized even robustness circuit, if you
Yeah,
want to call it,
yeah,
like, I think I prefer the term like robustness to injury prevention, to be
yeah,
honest. Like,
yeah,
but like if you think about all the sort of things you'd be wanting to see in that, so for me, you want to get like a fine balance between strengthening exercises and mobilizing as well. And I think some of the stuff you even touched upon there, like Copenhagen's class, then if you like even some sort of like glute bridge pattern, even some sort of squat pattern, and then RDLs, I suppose all the basics. And then now that I don't really know how effective they are, to be honest. I think research sort of, I don't really know if there is much research out there on the effectiveness of
yeah,
on how effective like mini band stuff is. But like, see, to be honest, like from my perspective, I think players like it. I think they do like doing the mini band stuff
yeah.
sort of before the games. So if they're gonna do that and it's a bit of what they want, I think you have to give people that as well.
Yeah, I think things like that get a lot of shit just because of
Yeah,
the term like activation, but again, it's like foam rolling and stuff. Like I'm not personally I don't think it's the be all end all, but if somebody is
mm,
lying down the foam roller and they're feeling it's a benefit, I'm not going to go over and be like, here, that's shite, you're wasting your time. Like if they're
yeah,
doing it,
yeah,
so I think it does get to the point that like you I suppose knowing what the players like. So if they like doing a mini band work, you maybe allocate it. And the robustness stuff too, if they like doing it, whether it be different wee squat challenges, some of it may not be, you don't even know if a lot of it is effective, but maybe some of the players enjoy it. You can make a wee challenge out of it, whether it be doing isometric holds or something, seeing who can kind of hold the longest in certain positions. Wee things like that could probably be another way to add some things into the warm up too.
yeah. I think you can get very bogged down. People can get bogged down maybe on like the science behind things and question it that way. But I think you have to consider the psychological sort of effect of stuff like that. Like, see if players feel like something works for them and they feel like it's going to help improve their performance, and there's that sort of psychological aspect to it, then I think it nearly overrides the science. Obviously, to an extent, like, but
Yeah.
like as long as I'm not doing something completely mad, like, but
Aye.
I think
This is going off on a tangent here, but like you'll
yeah,
but DC within like S&C, like you'll get some people that just will just ride the life out of research and will not do anything else outside of research,
yeah,
and it becomes frustrating at times, like the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Just the single mindedness. I don't know if that's the best term. That
yeah,
just if it's not in the research, it's a waste of time. And like you were saying, like a lot of times psychology trumps the research a lot of times, whether it be for them
100%.
things. But sometimes I get frustrated a lot of times with maybe people not understanding the balance between research and psychology, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose it's like, I think as an industry as well, where everyone's sort of out to criticize other people, like,
Arrogance.
it's it's wild, to be honest. But I
Well,
think
it's probably the same in every sort of industry, like, but I think because you're in it, you feel it more, like, but there seems like there's a lot of arrogance within it, like.
it's definitely, I think there's sort of few and far between, sort of. Well, not few and far between. There's definitely a lot of good people who are out there and willing to help in terms of S&C,
Yeah.
like, but at the same time, I think there's an overwhelming
Aye.
majority of people who are just out to, I don't even know, like, they're just,
Criticize.
they're where the highway.
Aye. Anyway, so then
Yeah.
into speed work. So I suppose the way I've kind of always liked to do warm ups is like I would lead my warm ups right into doing the speed work. Usually
Mhm.
because like you don't have a ton of time to do this, so it's just I would nearly count my speed work in my warm up at the end of it. So I would be keeping it really simple. Kind of always keep it
Mhm.
simple with it. So I would say within the first couple of weeks, so maybe those first 1 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks would be working in distances from 10 meters, maybe up to 30 meters, and all just kind
Okay.
of acceleration based. So probably do it very progressive. So maybe start off like we were saying earlier, doing 310s, 215s, 120. 410s the week next week, 315s, 220s, and then maybe extend it out to 25 meters the week after, then maybe 30. And then as we get maybe to like week 5, week 6, start hitting more like maximum velocity, so maybe 40 meters or doing like flying 10s or something. So I think I would start off with a block of just straight accelerations, anywhere from 10 meters to 20 meters in the first couple of weeks, and extend it out as each week goes on. And then maybe try and add in after that some sort of either change of direction or agility. So like one of the things I would like to do is maybe add in like a, you know, an agility game, like some sort of reaction based one, whether it be, you know, running on them and having to make a cut or having to make a decision there and then, or being in a grid like that one I was saying where you're chasing, you know, something that's getting them thinking, but working a wee bit of agility and a wee bit of change of direction. And I would probably leave it there, and then you bleed right into the session, and the lads are really sort of amped up for actually getting into the first ball drill or game scenario, whatever it is. What do you think?
No, listen, that's literally actually something I prescribed quite recently. The speed side of things, that I'd 100% agree with you. The only difference I would have had, I would have, like you said, 15s. I just didn't have 15s just because I went straight to 20.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's something I could think about as well. For me, I think, again, see, as long as it starts small, like if you go, say, right, you've got 10, 20 meter, 10, 20, 30, and we go from 3 reps of 10 to 20, 1 of 30, and then each week just try and progress it. Obviously, you're not going to progress your 10s or anything like that because you'll be there all night.
Yeah.
But I think even, like, as I sort of said, even like that window at the minute where there's no ball like there's no like contact to players and stuff, it gives you a real good window there to work at your speed work, like, doesn't it? Because
Really
you got to fill the section.
Really
And
does. Do you know one thing
even
though that's wild important, and I think it's forgotten about, and for good reason, is people will like approach it with the idea, like if you say here we're doing 3 10 meters, 15 meters, you could say it to somebody and give it to them and they'd be done in like 30 seconds, you know, because it's just like,
yeah,
you know, understanding that each of those sprints, and it's hard to get it through to people, and that's easy to understand, but like each of those runs has to be at your maximal intensity, or else you're not sprinting, so you're just kind of wasting your time at that distance. And in order to do that, you're going to require a wee bit of rest in between, and trying to, I suppose, you know, if you're doing a 20-meter sprint and maybe you're wanting to take 1 minute, 2 minutes rest, you know, trying to fill that gap with something. That's what I've been thinking about recently. You know, could you fill that with like, you know, could you fill it with like a shooting drill, something low intensity, or just a kick passing to keep people active? Because I think that's one thing to speed is that boys will just bang through those, and half of them will be jogging. So it just turns into like 20-meter jogs, 10-meter jogs. So trying to find a way to like fill the rest time and then be maximal intensity on the runs.
I think it's definitely like, even I'd say it probably is like, just, I wouldn't say it's a GAA thing. I think it's sort of the nature, like them sort of sports, like even football, rugby, Gaelic.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks like if you're not completely wrecked coming out of something, you haven't done.
Yeah.
You haven't worked, like, and sometimes, you know, you can get, like, when you're coaching speed, you can sometimes get them sort of faces looking back at you like, I feel like I could go. But it's getting people to learn that, you know, speed is like, freshness is so critical.
Yeah.
So I suppose that it's about getting a time filler in there. Like the way I would do it, like, say you do your 10 meters and then say take 90 seconds, 2 minutes rest, like in that window there, like if you're paired up with somebody and you both have a ball, or sorry, you have a ball between the two, is like the amount of players probably at club level that couldn't kick a ball with both feet, I'd say there'd be more, like, majority of club players could not do that, like myself probably included, you know what I mean, like to do, like, just to even work on basic skills that sometimes get overlooked, like even like in regards to like shooting, like sort of mastering even shooting and around that scoring zone. But I think it's important that activity is kept low key enough, and that it actually is an active recovery, so that you're not going to even tax them sort of that bit more before they go into their next sprint. But I think, as you mentioned, like something like that, like even that's a perfect opportunity to work, right? Kicking with both feet. Like,
yeah, it is. Like,
basic.
I suppose trying to just understand, like, you just try not to fly through that stuff at the start. Take your time, allocate, whether it be 10 or 15 minutes for that for your session. But I think that's the thing. You keep it simple and try and keep people engaged. And I was just thinking there when we were chatting, about, like, that's one of the things I'm sure you'll see too, is like you'll get maybe one or like, no, you'll get a good percentage of boys will give it 100% in the sprint, and get a few other boys will like kind of jog, or you'll get boys that'll jog for 5 meters or run for 5 meters and then jog the end of it, trying to get a way to engage people. So like, I think one simple one is either trying to like say to people here, this is going to be a race, we're going to see who wins, or else doing like chases, so like say I start here and you start maybe 5 meters in front of me. And I think that's what important is, trying to get people actually sprinting, and trying to figure out ways of doing that, whether it be, having a goal of trying to catch someone or get away from someone. Like,
Yeah, no, I would agree with you like 100%. I think that's where you do need to appreciate the science, and maybe sometimes it gets overlooked, whereby we either don't rest enough or we don't sprint hard enough to get a stimulus. I think it's very much sort of about, for speed work anyway, in my opinion, about really, really hammering them things home, because if you're not recovered enough, you're not going to sprint fast enough. And if you're not sprinting hard, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
As you said.
Yeah. So I think to sum up sprinting, keep it simple. 10 to 30 meters, and give yourself plenty of rest time. Gradually build it up each week. Like, would you say would you have a distance in mind, per session, like, no more than 100 meters per session or anything like that? Or how would you recommend a coach allocate distance for sprinting, in the weeks?
From my perspective, I think you definitely, as we sort of said, like you have to keep that real low at the start. So like say that first week, so you've got 3 10s, there's 30 meters, 2 20s is 40 is 70. So yeah, your first week you've got 100 meters basically.
Yeah.
And then if you think about it, then well, if we're gonna follow my thing anyway, we're sort of gradually building that up each week. So you've got your 3 10s, which are a staple. Then you move to 3 20s. So what's that? That's 90. And then you've got two 30 meters. So that's 90. 60 is 150. You're testing me here. So each week, if you sort of look at maybe increasing that number, by a reasonable enough, say be that like a 50 meters each week.
Yeah.
I think anyway. What would your thoughts be?
Yeah, I think so. I think like a simple way, I suppose, of doing it, like you said, is if you have 2 or 3 sessions in a week, if you write out in paper how many you're doing week 1, it's maybe just adding on a set for 2 or 3 weeks until the point where it becomes, if you're doing like 10 sets of 10 meters, it's probably at that point going, right, these is probably too many of these. So, you build up maybe for 3 or 4 weeks, and then you maybe look at, maybe we build out the distance a bit more. Maybe we add in like, some 30 meters, some 40 meter runs. So I would agree with you there. And I think, like we're saying, keep it simple, for coaches that are writing it down on a piece of paper. It's just maybe add on one more set each week to like each one of those runs, or maybe add on a wee bit more distance. Like,
definitely. And I think, again, I suppose to summarize, like, our thoughts on how it should be progressed, like slowly, like take things slow, like in the same way we're sort of starting at a reasonable enough base, so that I think you have to appeal to the masses in terms of, yes, you might have boys there who are capable of doing more, but they're probably going to be outweighed by, let's be serious, it's club football, like, so not everyone is, at that maybe level that some of them boys would be at. So I think you have to appeal to the lesser players as well. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. Not the lesser, and like maybe players who just don't have that same like level of fitness and athleticism. I think you have to appeal to them, because the risk is if you throw them in at that higher end, then you could break them.
Yeah. No, I agree. I suppose just to touch on it lightly, why would we not want to go first week doing 60-meter runs, 50-meter runs? You know, why would we not do them at max velocity like week 1 or week 2, would you say?
I think main reason is for anyone, I suppose, like even from my own perspective, like throwing in the speed work, like it's only sort of been recently, even despite like being in S&C, like probably the last year or so, where I would have done like dedicated like speed training. I think anyone who's done a good sprinting session the next day will know all about it.
Yeah.
In terms of you're gonna feel it, but you wanna keep that, again, that sweet spot where it's not that they can't walk the next day, or God forbid their hamstring goes. Do you know what I mean? So it's about, again, pushing that boundary so that you're pushing that stimulus each week, so that you're increasing the stimulus, so that you're getting people basically an exposure and a base level that they can accumulate before they then go into them higher end runs.
Yeah, I agree. I think people understanding that like sprinting is, like you're saying, so demanding. I think I remember on the seminar I was watching during lockdown. I think every fucking coach watched about 2 million Zoom sessions, but
Yeah.
I think it can be 5 to 7 times body weight in elite athletes. You know, when you're sprinting,
Yeah.
you absorb, which you'll never get squatting or anything. So like the demands that you're putting on your body to do that is so high. It's like getting a group of lads and going into the gym first lifting, going, here's, you're going to do multiple sets with your max rep in a squat. Like they might be okay, like they might get through it, but chances are, you're going to have a few of them are going to be a wee bit fucked up. Like, and if you do that every week, you're definitely going to get fucked up. So I suppose understanding that those real longer runs are going to be so demanding that you really have to build up to it. And probably as well, we're never going to be doing that in the football pitch. Like you're never going to be full sprinting for 50, 60 meters.
100%. I think it's getting people to realize that as well, that you're 30 meters, arguably 40 is probably the most you're going to do. Like
I was looking today, I'm doing a assignment, and it's on groin injuries, but I'm doing it on the basis of soccer. And I was just looking at the game demands of soccer, and the average in elite soccer of sprinting is 2 to 4 seconds. Of all out sprinting. Now this is only one paper, obviously, but 2 to 4 seconds. So it's because obviously, like, there's so many players, the game's tight, that you're going to be making a cut or the ball's going to come to your feet. So the chances of us having an all-out sprint for much longer than 10 seconds probably isn't going to happen. Like,
yeah, definitely. I think so. As you say, there 2 to 4 seconds. I think your absolute max there is probably 35 meters, and that's for someone who's much faster than me.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So then getting on to fitness side of things, so conditioning work, what would be your way of going about
it? Again, sort of coming at the point where you give people a bit of what they need and a bit of what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, from my perspective, I think tempo runs are big. I would be a big fan of them.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. I suppose the main reason is I think you're getting a far better quality of run and a higher sort of even meters per second, if you want, achieved on a consistent basis, to the extent that it's not going to have people maybe completely wrecked at the end of a session, but they could accumulate. So if they're doing that and it's maybe not as taxing on their nervous system and stuff, they can do that more. So they could do more sessions, accumulate more volume, and sort of get to the point where they can go at their aerobic system and really, but without completely wrecking themselves. But there is obviously always the complaint that because you're sort of running in and around that sort of 3/4 pace, boys are sort of and then because of the longer rest periods, you would maybe get people staring back at you like, "Are we going yet? Are we going yet?" They're
Yeah.
maybe so used to being wrecked at the end of a running session that they would maybe struggle to deal with it. I think boys are coming around it though. I think like certainly within my own club, like a lot of boys are seeing the benefits of it and
Yeah.
enjoying it.
I've seen obviously, like I would be in the same thoughts as yourself. Like the coach that I mentored under up at Derry kind of introduced me to him, John McMahon, and I seen there, like with the different Derry squads, that they were really good. And then doing them myself, like I was doing them this morning actually, and they see when you're running, you're running at a good speed, but you feel your technique is good as well, rather than you're just absolutely fucked and slogging around. Like I was running down, I was like, I feel fucking good and I feel powerful, and I feel like this is, the technique I want to be running with, and at the speed, so I think it's brilliant that it's somewhat similar to game speeds. The techniques is very similar, and
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is it's so easy to do and so progressible, each week.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think they give you an opportunity to sort of, again, as I mentioned, like get boys maybe more exposure to running, to the extent where, like, if you take something that's maybe been typically used, like mass runs as well, which boys would maybe go at, where like you think by the second or third run, the quality of the run's gone,
Yeah.
and it's just like getting to that line in, I don't know, 15 seconds, whatever it is. Whereas if you have an emphasis, then if you shift that emphasis towards more quality running, and like sort of having boys actually think about how they're running and the way they want to run, I just think it's much better. Like, but at the same time, I think there goes back to that psychological aspect where boys maybe want to be leaving a session feeling like they've done something.
Yeah.
But so like that's where I would maybe like incorporate a bit of both, to be honest. I would maybe have your tempo sessions paired up with your sprinting sessions, just because the sprinting sessions are going to be that bit harder,
Yeah.
on the body. And then if you have, say, maybe a low key agility day, and pair that up with like and pair that up with a mass session of some sort, I think that gives you a real nice balance that'll get a bit of what you want. Well, obviously mostly what you want in, but then at the same time giving players that sort of feeling that they've worked hard. And I think there is definitely a place still for mass runs as well. Not to knock them completely. Like
I done
needs to be lactate like.
I done a podcast with Paul Fisher, who's Donegal strength conditioning coach, and they do mass runs with Donegal. And this was whenever they were, not that they're not, but like this was whenever they were at that Ulster final stage, so it works, and it works for different teams. I think the reasons that kind of we're saying, why tempos are good, like I just think they see with a team like setting up and actually figuring out mass number one, doing that, and then setting it up, it's not the hardest thing in the world, but you want training to be easy to set up. And especially if you're a coach that maybe you're the only man that's coming down there to coach the team, or maybe it's you and somebody else, you don't want to having to be fucking working out mass runs and everything. It's easy to do tempos and say, here, we're doing 100 meters in 17 seconds and you're going to go again whenever the next minute starts or something. It's an easier way of doing things, and it's easy to progress. Two things though, well, not two things, a few things.
Just plug this in.
All right.
Yeah.
Two things that I would say that I have found with tempo runs is number one, it gets to the stage with them of how far do you progress them, because obviously you can only do so many in a session, and how do you get to the point where you go, how many sets of 100 meters can I really do each night and each week before I'm taking up too much time? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Like, at what point do you go, this is enough tempo running in a session? Have you a distance in mind, or what way would you work it out?
Well, I've seen like coaches sort of experimenting with them a wee bit, in terms of like, so once maybe they get to that sweet spot where you're covering, so 3 sets of 8, 100 meters, and then you're at that sort of, you have a 20-second working window, 40-second rest, where like they'll actually maybe manipulate that a bit more. So they could have it so say for the initial part you're going out 10 meters, or you're maybe doing a crossover step for the first 10 meters, and then transition into then your tempo run, or like in between, like say at, I don't know, like maybe the halfway point to your rest, they'll throw in, right, 10 press ups, or even just something different, like a different stimulus then on top of that. So you could either, you suppose you could either like, you could change it that way, or you could maybe change the stimulus of the run so that it's like a more like like a curved arc run, if you like. I think
Yeah.
you could go at it that way, in my opinion.
So
Like,
rather than, once you get to a certain point with distance, then think about changing up the run itself a wee bit. One thing
yeah,
I experimented with last week was after I did a run, I would go and take a shot, in between each
yeah,
run.
nice.
And it was good. Only the issue was I only had fucking one football, so like I had to nearly run in behind the net. So like I was
You're
fucking.
doing a tempo back to get the ball in.
I was, I was. It was a big session, put it like that. But if you have footballs, like I think we things like that. But you get to a certain point, I guess, with tempos where you go, this is probably enough now. It's time to maybe change how they look, or maybe look for an alternative. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even at that, like as you're saying, like if you think like there's say you do 3 sets of 8, there's near 2.5K at like a decent running. Like how much more do you want to do? And
Yeah.
then I think the way then you do change it up, like as you said, even there, like building on what I had said, like you could throw in a skill. Like is it that once they get to the end line, you maybe give them 10 seconds, and then it's even something simple like solo left hand, or a soloing with the left foot, soloing with the right foot, and then I don't know, like a pass. Just maybe even just throw in a different skill each time. Just have a like
Yeah.
people partnering up and stuff. I think it's an opportunity for coaches to get creative, in my opinion. Like,
I was working with a rugby team last year, and I was thinking of similar to what you're saying there. Like, so in between when they were doing tempos, we would have done like, it's like a jiu-jitsu thing where you go like up and under with the arm. So it's kind of like a wrestling move, in between. So like there's
aye,
impacts of the chest. It's kind of hard to explain without someone else here, but
yeah,
doing that. And then the other one was like our kicker would have like practiced a shot. The hookers would have done, this in between. It's not a bad idea. It's just difficult in that, it does tire them out a lot more when they're not maybe built up to that there. But
yeah,
like you're saying, trying to maybe think of wee ways in between that you can incorporate things to keep players not standing about going, this is fucking handy, having them go and,
yeah,
you going, right, we're back and runs, like, fuck, right. I think that would be the
yeah.
idea, getting to that point, but it does, as you say, take a wee bit of creativity, doesn't it?
I think even touching on that as well, I think it's important even to be like the purpose of the exercise is to accumulate like a better quality of run.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to be careful at the same time with your activity
Yeah.
that you pick, that it doesn't, that you're not taking away from the quality of the run,
Yeah.
because I think with tempos you're looking for each run to look the same.
Yeah.
I've sort of heard as well, like boys saying you should be able to hold a conversation basically at the end of each rep. So I think you would want to be careful too at the same time that you don't completely like you don't shift the emphasis of the exercise. The focus of it is obviously the tempos, and whatever's being done like in the background is sort of just a secondary. As you're saying, to keep boys away from being like, this is handy.
That's a good point, because like as you say that makes me think back to me doing the shooting last week, and it turned what is like an aerobic running drill into like a glycolytic one, because my legs are starting to get
Yeah,
fucked on the end, so that is a great point. I think it's trying to remember what the purpose of them is, because you could get down a road of taking it maybe too far with things in between. So I think, as you said there, some sort of low level activity to keep you busy in between is probably the best option. Like,
yeah, agreed.
and would you say in terms of distance, like you said, sort of 2.5K, would that be what you would be wanting to build up to? by
I think Oisin, that's a decent.
yeah.
I don't think you would want to go much more than that. I don't see the point,
I
to be
think
honest.
like that's not even taking into account if we're doing a pitch session here and you have maybe ball drills and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like if you think like they're going to get a stimulus through their small sided games, they're going to get a stimulus through their sprinting. How much do you want to give people? Do you know what I mean? Like if you're as well as that, tempos take time. Like there's 3 sets of 8 with 3 minutes rest in between sets. So like you're talking near the guts of half an hour to do that. So
what would you think about when you're doing, this is kind of going off point, but like when you're doing like tempos to split it up in a session? So let's say this is for the manager, you start with a block of tempos, you maybe do, game drill, ball game, then you do tempos, match, finish with tempos. Would you break it like that, or would you think it's best to do them all in the one block? Or would
it's actually that's a great point. I've sort of always had the view, well, not always. I've just sort of had it that you could maybe that you're running as like a separate part of the session. But I think what you've described there would break it up nicely. In that it's not maybe as much of a not a burden. I don't want to say a burden, but like it's maybe not as like people going get this done. Do you know what I mean? Like if you integrate it in with your session like that, I think that's actually quite nice. And then even at that, I think it maybe would help improve the quality of the runs. If you say, right, they've done their set of sprints and then they're in their set of tempos, and then so they're already quite fresh, and then their freshness is still there, as opposed to just at the end of the session going right tempos. But I think that's actually very good. I would be in agreement with that. Like.
Yeah, I think you could probably do it both ways. Like I think there's probably pros and cons of both ways of doing it, but I think that's the thing. It's always comes down to how can you keep people most engaged. When you're doing these things, like, and maybe for some teams that would be doing it at the end and just fucking get it done, or maybe it is breaking it up in between, like.
Yeah, no, agreed.
I think I don't know if you've read Fergus Connolly's book. I have it over there somewhere. Sports Science, something along those lines. But he breaks down game drills and like the duration and the intensity and the type of activity in it. For like aerobic or anaerobic, that sort of side of things. And I think it's a really good resource for coaches, and it's similar to James Smith's book, Global Concepts of Coaching, or whatever it's called. Same idea. Like they go from a standpoint of working like aerobic system and anaerobic system based on time and intensity and the amount of sets. So it's like a slightly different way of going around it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I must have get a look at that.
Joel Jameson stuff, the conditioning book for MMA, like doing cardiac power intervals of 2 minutes, of max intensity, of trying to raise your heart rate. There is different ways of going about things, and I think it's like I've been looking into that recently because like I've always been looking at tempos and going, is there other ways of switching it up, and are they better or are they worse? I think with strength conditioning you go in loops all the time, like about what's the best way to do things.
Definitely, like even there that you had mentioned about tempos, I suppose it's not until obviously if you can, like as a coach, I think you try something out yourself and see what you think before you implement it with somebody else. At the start with tempos, I was very skeptical, to be honest. I just didn't see how. I struggled to just. I think, I think that's probably where a lot of Gaelic players would be as well. Like they would struggle to see how they could be doing something that's effective when they're resting for longer than they're working.
Yeah.
But that is essentially what it is. So it's not until you go and try something out, I don't think, that you can with confidence say, I like that.
Yeah.
I just don't see how it works. Or on the contrary as well, like I don't think you can turn around and say that's shite until you've tried it yourself.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I think it does come back to that thing of understanding, and I think this is a good way of trying to get players to buy into it too. Before you do them, you're trying to say, look, we have different energy systems. We're trying to work your
Yeah,
aerobic system, and if it starts becoming too heavy and like burning the legs, we're not working that system anymore. We're not
yeah,
really working that system, and that's a system we need for recovery, for having that base of fitness. So although this is going to feel somewhat easy, we have to do it at this speed, or else we're not going to build that base. But we have the idea, and it's like we all have the idea that you can only gain fitness when you're at that fucking top level. Like if you're not up there, you're
yeah,
not getting it. But
definitely.
it's hard to understand that, I think.
I think it comes, and that again comes down to like education. Like I suppose players at this stage now, like a lot of players take their training that are
Yeah,
real serious. Like you could argue that some, like even some players, like players are smart. Like in terms of like they're clued in.
yeah,
They want to know they want to know about what they're doing. I think Gaelic players especially, they're very driven in terms of they'll want to know the exact reason why they're doing stuff. Like they're not just gonna
yeah.
just
Do it.
follow the shepherd
Like,
and
yeah,
like do it. Like, do you know what I mean? They're gonna want to know why, because I think they're at the stage now. I think the games came a long way, and that obviously there's good coaches out there and they're involved in the sport, and because they've been exposed to a range of methods. So like you've got players who've been exposed to mass runs, so they want to know why. Right, well, why are we not doing mass runs when mass runs may have worked for me before? So
yeah.
why are we not doing these tempo runs? So I think as a coach, it's something even that you have to be prepared. If you're going to prescribe something, you better be able to back
Explain
it up.
it.
Basically, I don't. I think as a coach, it's actually good in terms of from your own perspective. It pushes you to know why you're doing something. So you can't just see someone's session and go, "Oh, I'm going to do that because he did it." So it's
Definitely.
good from a learning point of view too. I think.
I 100%. Like I think you always have to, and even in the gym too. When you're taking ones, it's asking yourself like, why are we doing this? Because there would be nothing worse than somebody going, why am I doing this? And you stand there going, um, because like that
Same
is
Dublin ones.
fear. Like that is the absolute fear.
Yeah.
But I know last year that rugby team I worked with, like you can imagine what it's like telling a group of rugby players we're going to do 100-meter runs here at like a 70% pace. It's not something they'd be all that used to, like, in running relatively longer distances isn't something, but they see trying to kind of say, look, we're doing this for a reason and this is why. It helps so
Mm.
much with buying. Like we have like the club is great too and the players are great, so that help, but it helps so much with getting people to go, right, well, I need to do this for this reason, rather than just going, you're doing this just because I fucking said so.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. Like it's maybe a shift in coaching too, where players aren't afraid to maybe ask why as well. Like now that you mentioned that, whereas before maybe coaches like you don't like
Yeah.
question the coach, or like coach knows what he's doing. Everybody follow coach. Like I think it's a players aren't afraid to express and ask why they're doing stuff. Like from my own perspective, like I'm sure you've been through it as well. Like when you're, as you said, when you are maybe prescribing stuff in the gym or on the pitch, players are going to ask you. Like they're not just gonna follow along with it. Like especially like if you've got players say that have been through like an injury or something. I find they're the players that are maybe to an extent. Obviously, this could vary, but some of them players would have more of like an exposure to like some like different ranges of training. Like say for example, you have like some like single leg exercises or something.
Uh-huh.
Like and they would then be like saying to you, like one I get all the time, for example, would be like I'd be a big fan of a split squat, but both feet would be on the ground
Yeah.
in that sense. And then you always get players that are saying to you, oh, why? What about having that back leg raised up? Like do you know what I mean? And then it's then having the ability to explain to them, well, if we raise that back leg up, that's going to put that additional balance demand on,
Yeah.
and then you're sort of taking away. We're trying to improve single leg strength,
Yeah.
so if both legs are on the ground, like just do you know what I'm saying? Like you sort of get that opportunity
Aye.
explain things, and to get players, you have to appreciate their points too, though. Like,
I like
y- y-
people don't ask things for the, for this. They're not just asking things just to be a dick. Like there's usually a reason
oh,
behind it. Like
yeah.
and that reason is either from like a genuine, could just be genuine interest, or it could be because, well, here I don't think this is the best way to do it. Like, and then
Mm,
I think as a coach too, if you don't, appreciate the other answer, it just festers and that becomes very bad. Like our coach at home is
yeah.
very good for that, and like he would be very open to looking up different coaching methods, and like saying like what do you think of that session, and not like, I think that's an important thing. You can't be afraid to get feedback, because if
Mm,
you're doing that, you'll end up going down the route of going every session I have to fucking bust them in order for them to go, fuck,
yeah.
that was a good session there.
Yeah, definitely. I think even just even to follow up again on that, I think as coaches now, Instagram and that can be the worst enemy, because
Yeah,
players maybe will see, like, I think, in fairness, I do think GAA is moving away from the sort of bodybuilding culture where everyone was in the gym and they were bench pressing and they were doing pull-ups and that was it.
yeah,
Like, but I think like there is still that thing, well, oh, such and such is doing this, and like it's maybe a way more complicated exercise. It actually could be an exercise that's complicated to the point where there's no real purpose to the exercise, but
yeah,
they're going, but we're only doing this baby version of the split squat. Like, why are we not doing it with, I don't know, dumbbells behind our head or something like
yeah,
mad?
yeah, yeah,
Like, I think players need to sometimes know what level they're at too, if that makes sense.
yeah. I think a lot of it does come down to as well. I think Instagram and social media and YouTube, whenever you're looking up things, you always see the best of the best, and you see the
Mm,
flashy side of things. You never really see that, like, that flashy stuff is maybe like a small percentage, and that comes off the background of doing lots and lots of boring basic things. And I think in the program, whether it be in the gym or in the pitch, it's understanding that those flashy things and those things are great, and they're enjoyable, but at the same time, it's the basics that really it all comes down to, whether it be in the gym or whether it be in the pitch. That's you're doing your strength work for lower body, upper body, and different planes of motion. It's doing your tempos out in the pitch, doing your speed work. Like, you might want to go and bring the fucking sled out in the pitch, and you might want to do
mm,
some I don't know, some fucking jumps with a push band attached to it. It tells you,
yeah.
fucking cool. Like, we're all like that there, but it's important to understand, I suppose, that the basics have to be done first. Like, and then as a coach, you have to be able to say, here's why we're doing the basics, and here's why we're not doing that flashy shit first. Like,
Yeah, I think add a couple of things even when I add to that. Like, the first thing would be, like, it's getting players to know that they have to earn the right to do the flashy shit, the fancy stuff. And even that sort of Instagram sort of culture that you talk about, even, it was actually last week, the woman who does the CrossFit, Tia Claire Toomey, so last week I think she clean and jerked 120 kilos or something. But then, like, a couple of days later, so obviously that's amazing. Like, a couple of days later, she put up a video of herself 5 years ago learning how to clean and jerk and learning how to snatch. So, like, you're not just born with this ability to be able to clean and jerk 120 kilos. Like, it's about the process, sort of like just consistent training to get to that level. And I know obviously that's maybe 120 kilo clean and jerk isn't probably that applicable to Gaelic, but you get the idea. Like,
I
it's the same
agree.
with, like, the fancy jumps with a push band and all that. Like, earn the right, basically.
I think though, uh, Gaelic players and just the whole Gaelic camogie hurling, I think it's brilliant the way that within the past couple of years, people have put such an emphasis on their training and are so interested in it. Like, and you see it in, like, both of our work now is essentially revolving around, to a large extent, the Gaelic culture, because people are so interested. And I think it is brilliant as well. Like, and I suppose that's the whole point of doing this, is that, like, we're trying to give a wee bit more clarity to players. Like,
Yeah,
I think there's so much brilliant work being done, but there's just a lot of shite out there too. I think it's just good to try and cut through it and keep it simple for players. Like
100%. And even I think that's what sort of the reason, like we came together, like to sort of get players to accept that the basics work and the basics are okay. Like if you're doing basics, it's not because you're shite. Like the basics are going to work and they're going to help you get to that next level.
Yeah. And then I think it's, the coach's job to maybe spice things up a wee bit every now and then with whether it be adding something into the training to keep it, more like make those basics a wee bit more enjoyable or change it up. Like I think that's an important thing too.
Definitely. I think giving people primarily what they need and then of a secondary concern a wee bit of what they want as well. Definitely massive advocate of that. Like.
Yeah. So let's kind of sum up then. So we had our warm-up was going over that ramp routine. So the sprint mechanics, some sort of strengthening work, maybe some sort of mobility, and then we're into the kind of jumps, plyometrics, leading into our sprint work then. Our sprints were working for the first couple of weeks anyway, anywhere from 10 to 20 meters, maybe a maximum of 100 meters in a week. Possibly adding in maybe some like change of direction, some agility work. So that would probably apply for individual players going down to the pitch themselves, and then teams as well. Pretty much the same kind of thing. Anywhere from probably 20 to 30 minutes. Would you say you could wrap that section up in?
Yeah, I think even from the change of direction perspective as well. Like I think having players that change of direction and agility aren't the same thing. Now I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here, but like even if a player's improving their ability to change direction, like if it's a straight line, like if you start with cones in a straight line and then they're going in and out of the cones and then you make the cones a wee bit wider, like just simple things like you don't have to comp and just make them cones a wee bit wider so their cuts a wee bit sharper. Stuff like that I think works really well.
I agree.
Obviously with the agility, like there's that reactive element to it as well, but I don't think, let's not get bogged down in that
now. I think trying to touch on all them wee bits that you're chatting about though is important, like, and keep it interesting, I suppose. And then getting into the main body of the session. So I suppose for the team, we were sort of saying two options there. So you could go with, we're sort of saying tempo runs is a good option. You could split it up where you go a block of tempo runs, maybe 800 meters worth. And to maybe people that aren't too sure in tempos, basically what we're saying is you're doing a run at about 70-75% of your max speed, and then you're going to rest basically double the time it takes you to do that. So if it takes you 20 seconds, you're resting 40 seconds, something along those lines. So we could say block of them, and then you're doing maybe a block of ball work, block of running, block of ball work, and then you're running to finish for like the team possibly, or else do all the running. Would you say do the run at the end if you were doing them all at once, or would you say do them at the beginning?
I think you've converted me, to be honest. I think breaking it up.
Yeah.
I think that works really well.
Yeah. I
think it takes away that sort of dread that some players might have where they know they're coming into 30 minutes of straight run.
Yeah.
Like, because if you break it up, it's maybe not as bad. I don't think, and actually I like the way that's structured. It makes sense to do it like that.
Yeah. And then that would be, I suppose, the main, that would be the team session. Then I suppose if you're doing it individually, you would probably just do those. I suppose you could do it a similar way too. If you have a bag of footballs, you could do your block of runs, do a wee bit of skill work for a couple of minutes for your 3 minutes recovery, do your block of runs, do a bit of skill work, bit of shooting, come back. You could probably do your individual session somewhat similar, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think even, like, as you say, like, just find a different skill to separate each time. Yeah. Like, say the first time you're emphasizing, mastering the scoring zone sort of shooting. Like, maybe take, I don't know, if you're lucky enough to have a bag of footballs, like, even if it's 6, 7, 8 footballs, like, and just practice getting them, kicking them over the bar, and like that sort of in that scoring zone. Maybe the second one could be, you're just emphasizing, like, I don't know, it could be you're just kicking with both feet, even I think people could even underestimate like just even soloing the ball, like
Yeah.
real simple things, like, but maybe just get overlooked because it's not that fancy, but it
Yeah, I
still could
agree.
work.
It's the basics like we're chatting about.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, is there anything else you would add to either of those sessions, or anything else you would maybe think as a consideration?
No, I think it's
I think that's
reasonable
a good
enough.
starting point, isn't it? Like,
Definitely. And then I suppose, do you want to chat a bit about strength work or
I suppose we could. I'm kind of a bit
is it
cautious. I don't
free?
want to keep it too late either. I feel like
You're
we
right.
covered. I suppose strength work, if we keep it simple.
Yeah.
What would you say? Like, you're talking strength work. Like, what would be your recommendations for players coming into doing strength work now?
So I think for me, I keep strength work real simple, and I'm sure you probably follow a
Yeah.
simple protocol yourself, especially if we're looking at groups of people. Like, I think it's hard to look past the basics. You know, you have a back squat, you've an RDL, you have a split squat, you have an upper body push, you have an upper body pull. You maybe finish off with some core work, and then the only real change, like, I could see the argument, right? So if we've trained the hamstring from the hip one day, then the next day maybe like throw in like a foam roller curl or something instead. But like other than that, like it is hard to sort of argue against the basics. Like you could maybe say, like your split squat, you could maybe separate that with like a lateral squat that's maybe getting people out,
Yeah.
sort of like into that sort of frontal plane as well, which is good. Um, so yeah, I don't really see.
Strength
You don't
work
really
is
need to go outside that, like, do you?
strength work's pretty simple, like, isn't it? I think the only thing which I like adding in, which you could probably add into the pitch session, is doing like that wee robustness circuit. So one of the ones that like
Yeah.
I've been kind of doing recently is um, a foam roller bridge. I stole it from
Mm.
David Gray rehab. A foam roller bridge where you're pushing through the floor, like the midfoot, and you're driving your heel up as you do it. You get a good bit of calf contraction and hamstrings, but it's just nice symmetric. I would use that, 10 to 20 seconds. I would recommend you try it. Like, it's fucking very demanding in the hamstrings, and then
Mm.
add in
So is that just like
Copenhagen.
glute bridge on the foam roller, is it? Like,
Glute bridge essentially, but like you're in a lengthened position. So like imagine like your leg would be, pretty much
oh, with
straight.
your heel would be on the roller, would it?
So like say the roller is my hand here, my
Yeah.
midfoot on it. So I'm not pushing to the
Oh,
heel. The heel would be easy enough, but I'm pushing through the midfoot. And as I'm doing,
yeah.
I'm trying to push my heel up and get my hips up high, but it's single leg too. So you see the
Yeah.
traction, the hamstring is
You
you,
tight hamstrings there.
fuck it. I'm telling you, you would I struggle to hold it for more than 20 seconds, like really tough.
Yeah.
Um and then maybe like a Nordic and then a Copenhagen. That's I've been keeping it simple the past few while, like doing isometric, doing eccentric, and then do a wee bit of work for the groins. That's probably the only other thing I would maybe possibly add into the wee bit of strength work. Like use that as nearly a wee prep routine before you start.
Definitely. I think again, it sort of is that thing that people maybe want to see things that are really complicated, but they don't need to be. Like
Yeah,
strength, as you say, strength is simple. Like
yeah. I
it's
think
not that complicated.
I think as well too. One of the questions I always would get is like, what reps should I be doing and what sets? Like,
Yeah.
I think you get to a certain point where you go reps and sets. It doesn't like it's hard for us to sit here and go, here, don't do 6 or 8 reps because that's going to do this, and don't do 1 or 3 because that's going to do that. Like, if you do fucking 10 reps of something and you do 5 reps, you're going to be getting stronger off both of them. Like, it's all pretty much the same. So I think for players out there listening, where you're wondering, should I do fucking 4 sets of 10 or should I do 4 sets of 5? It probably doesn't matter that much, really. Like,
100%. Like I think it's very important to be aware that you're not training weightlifters, like you're
yeah,
training footballers, like,
I think the
and that
important
might be that might be a bit contradictory for a man that does cleans and snatches every time he goes to the gym. Like, but like
yeah,
for me, like that's just my way. I like that's what I like. I
yeah,
like a bit of that
yeah.
mixed in with my robustness stuff.
I think
So it
though,
makes sense for me
do
to
you know
do
what's
that.
important on that, and it's kind of what you're saying is, whatever approach that you go for, you be consistent. So if you're doing
Yeah, exactly.
if you're doing back squats and you're doing sets of 10, you base your plan off going, right, I'm going to stick it doing 10 reps and add weight, or I'm going to, go 8 reps next week. I'm going to go 6 reps, 4 reps, have a
Yeah,
progressive plan. I would say try not to like jump from going, right, today I'm going to do Olympic weightlifting. Next week I'm going to go back to doing my normal program. Then I might do a bit of
yeah,
CrossFit. Like whatever approach you go for, it's brilliant that you're going for an approach, but whatever approach you go for, you be consistent with that approach for, a couple of weeks at least anyway.
100% agree. Yeah,
One thing I'm thinking of trying out is I'm not sure if you're familiar with Alex Natira. He's
yeah.
coach with the GWS Giants, but he released a paper there on high volume power training. I started reading about it. It's quite interesting. Like, so I think I might try something like that out, maybe 2 or 3 weeks out from when our kind of season starts, as something different to do. But for the
Yeah,
past couple of weeks and for the next couple of weeks, my focus is on general strength training, like nothing fancy or crazy, just basic general strength training, and then do a wee bit of that kind of power training, a couple of weeks
yeah,
out. Like,
yeah, definitely. I suppose I don't know. I normally do experiment with things as well myself, and funny you mentioned Alex and Tara. Like, I like to look at a lot of that isometric stuff
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
put up. And I think like that's something that I might,
yeah,
dabble into. Like I think, as you say though, it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you're consistent within reason. Like, of course, but
yeah.
as long as you're doing something and you're doing it on a repeated basis, that's all you need. Like,
And do you know what the thing is as well? Like, we both put up stuff on online Instagram. Like, whenever people are like, "What session should I do for that?" I'm like, there's about a fucking 100 workouts up on my page. There's a load of workouts up on your page, other people's pages. Like, there is loads of workouts information out there. So if you're so confused you don't know what to do, there's people that have put information out there that you can probably trust. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing as well. I think it's about players sort of knowing that they can reach out as
yeah,
well. And you obviously you would do that Sunday like Q&A, and like obviously people know they can maybe reach out to yourself, but even if it's on a more personal level, like I'm certainly not gonna say to someone that, or tell someone to go away who comes and asks me like a simple question, then you wouldn't do the same. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's about coaches being approachable too. Like, and if someone does ask you like for help, that you come across as someone who
yeah,
can give that out. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Like, I'm the same. Like, I will answer every question that I get sent to me on Instagram. The only times I would answer it is if it's someone being a dick, or if it's just so stupid that it doesn't warrant a response. But I would say 95% of the time I respond to questions because, and I'm sure the same, whenever you were at that point where you don't know what you're doing, and you know,
yeah,
although it seems sometimes some of these things seem so simple and straightforward to us, like maybe to some players, it's not that easy. So I think probably players understand that a lot of coaches are willing to give advice, and if they're not, if they fucking ask for £10 for per question, they're probably a dick. Like,
yeah. Now listen, see, that's the thing as well. And to be honest, I fell into that sort of bracket sometimes myself, where you maybe build up this thing where you forget that that you were once in the same boat, like
yeah,
as somebody who didn't know.
yeah,
Like, not saying I know everything, far from it. Like, but like you forget that you didn't know, and at times that was you,
yeah,
that you were in them same shoes. Like from my perspective, that my sort of interest in fitness sort of spiraled because I didn't know, and
yeah,
that's where I got the interest. Like, I think it really is, as you say, it's about being approachable, and like
yeah, for
for people to like realize that like it's your job to help people. Like, I
yeah,
think that's maybe something I've been guilty of, like in the past, like maybe not like putting stuff, or like putting like content out for people that they can see and they can maybe
yeah,
like take forward. I think the more you will sort of give to people, in terms of like if you're giving them sample sessions, or like stuff like that. Obviously within reason, like the more they're going to appreciate that, and I think that's where you sort of that's where you're like it's sort of your like if you're an S&C coach, like your job's to help people improve. Like so, if someone reaches out to you, I think it's a bit lousy if you wouldn't like at least guide them in the right direction. Now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. On that note, where could people reach out to you or find out more about your stuff? Like where are you at online?
Yeah, so if any issues or anything, you'd reach out to me on Instagram. I think it's just CORMAC LD, but if you just search my name, CORMAC HANNAN, any issues or anything.
You're then obviously you're doing coaching in the kind of Belfast area then as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd be based in Belfast, so I've got my own sort of private setup there, which is good. I'm actually, it can be a bit obsessive when you get something like that going because you're never done thinking about how to improve it. So it's good. It's actually been a last couple of months, getting it all set up, and it's really enjoyable. Like I'm really enjoying it, and then obviously now I'm sort of starting to build up a bit of a base there, and it's nice to be able to help people out too, and obviously on top of coaching that I'm doing as well. But I think on a personal level, it's always that bit better. When you are like training someone like outside of that team setting, when they come to you, they're putting their trust in you essentially. So it's nice to be able to help people and reach out.
I think one of the things that it took me probably a long time to realize as well, that whenever you're coaching people aren't necessarily, sometimes they're not there for you, because that it is you're doing an important thing for people, and that like you don't know what people are maybe going through in that day or how they're feeling, and like them coming down for that session could be the thing that just makes them leave happier. And it's a really powerful thing, I think, that like somebody could come down to you and train and they could be feeling shitty when they come down, they could leave feeling great, or that could be their escape for an hour. Like I think once you start to realize that, it makes you value what you're doing a lot more. And I suppose I would definitely say that like it took me a long time to realize it. So the fact that you're kind of seeing that now with kind of just starting your own place up recently is a good thing. Like,
yeah, definitely. Like, I suppose like exercise, even like it's so important. Like I think that's why this all sort of spiraled. Like see if I hadn't had that set up to go and train, like through lockdown, like fucking head of my head.
You go mad.
Yeah, like I had to get something just I would have struggled to cope without it. Like, so it's good that way. Like that's how it started off. Obviously, it was on a personal level, and then it's nice then when you get that sort of obviously like people.
That's how like these things start too, though. Like, isn't it? If a situation like this might not have happened, you might not have said, that you would do that or you would go with it. You'd maybe stay doing what you're doing, but like that might be the best thing that has ever happened for you, because you never know what each wee space can come onto. So like
definitely,
it's amazing too how each wee part of the story and each wee part of the journey at the time you don't think much about it, but like in a couple of years you could be looking back and going like, fuck, I'm so glad that whole situation happened, or else I wouldn't have had the setup I'm in now. Like,
yeah, definitely. I think you only have to look as far as yourself there as well. Like you started out training in a shed in your back garden, and then
that's
slowly
another thing. Like, I think with time at the start, like you enjoy it, you get the crack, but you don't know where it can go either. So it's brilliant whenever you can I suppose have a bit of crack at the start and not be under pressure, and then you never know kind of where it can build to. But it always makes for a good story too whenever you look back. Like,
100%, definitely agree.
We should definitely try and organize a session, do some Olympic weightlifting at some point.
I would love that. Let's organize that for the not too distant future.
Yeah, good. I haven't done any snatching in a while. I've done a bit of split jerking and stuff the past while, so we can maybe get a session organized at some point. That'd be good.
I'd be a big fan of that. Let's do that.
Sounds good. Cormac, I think we'll leave it there. I think we covered that pretty well.
Yeah. Cheers for having me, Oisin. It's a
Aye, thanks
pleasure.
for coming on. Appreciate you giving up your evening.
No, Paul.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks. I'll speak to you soon, sure.
Yes, good man, Oisin. Thank you.
See ya. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.